actually do have a problem, Cece. I actually do. I actually do. It literally gets to the point where I'm writing in my journal, Lauren has 24 hours in a day. If 4% of her day is 1 hour, how many more hours? Like, it gets to the point where I'm doing calculations on how I can spread my energy out and make sure I make it through.
Hi, I'm CT Jones. I'm a culture writer at Rolling Stone, and we have with us Keke Palmer. Welcome to the Rolling Stone interview.
Oh, thank you for having me.
We've got our business boss lady, our mogul, our actress, our performer. You've been in the industry since you were 9 years old. What was the first instinct that showbiz might be for you?
I don't know if it was like that I knew showbiz immediately, but just performing on stage, like performing on stage, even just in church or in like the school plays. I was like, I'm cool with this. Like this big conversation with the audience, I'm into that vibe.
Now, what was your first big audition?
My first big audition, I would probably say it's so hard to say because big is so relative. You know, like my first big audition, I would say is Barbershop 2.
Okay.
But then like my first big audition in California when we moved was for a movie with William H. Macy. That we did for TNT that got me a SAG nomination. But then like if we're talking about, you know, leading role, breakout moment, Akeelah and the Bee would be my biggest audition, I think.
Talk to me a little bit about Barbershop, because that was one of your first, I feel like, breakout roles where I feel like if I watch a film, I'm like, and that's Keke Palmer.
Yes, especially the first time that we're seeing that attitude.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So Barbershop 2, they didn't want me to audition at first because I hadn't done much. I didn't have any credentials, honestly. They said, maybe you can be one of the extras in the movie, and my mom had contacted Sharon Davis, who was the casting director. And my mom and I had come up with this plan that even though they didn't want me to audition for the role, I should do a video of me doing the lines and like, you know, singing a bit of like Be a Lion from The Wiz, and then send it in and see what happens. And so my mom sent it in and they called us back like a month later, like, we haven't found that girl, but we loved your daughter's tape. Would you like to bring her in to audition for the movie? But it's going to be with Ice Cube in the room and, you know, it's going to be a big deal. So is she ready for that? And I just remember, like, I had to be ready for that. Like, I had to be ready for that.
Yeah. Had you lived in Hollywood for long at that point?
No, so that was actually in Chicago.
Oh,
yeah, so
okay.
They actually filmed Barbershop 2 in Chicago. So that was like a perfect opportunity. But after that, we realized that there weren't many things coming to Chicago. So if I wanted to actually be a kid entertainer professionally, I was going to have to move to California.
Now, how many siblings do you have?
I have 3. So I have an older sister. She's 4 years older than me. Her name is L'Oreal. And then I have a younger brother and sister. They're twins. And they are 25. Yeah.
Now, with that in mind, like, you're not an only kid, right? You guys decide, we think Hollywood's in the future. How do you make that decision as a family to say, we think Keke's got it, we're going to uproot our lives?
I mean, that is really a question truly for my parents as well, because even I, as Keke Palmer, am like, why did y'all do that? You know what I mean? I'm like, what made y'all know? But my parents are like so like faith-based folks. And so my mom always talks about how like I kneeled down beside my toilet and God had brought the moment to me and I just said, God, do I need to bring Keke to California? And I felt a calm come over me. She tells the story the same every time. So I'm like, yeah. My parents really believed. They always said that, you know, they looked and they saw what I was doing and they felt like it deserved to be seen. I think they felt like there cannot be a crime in her having something that's worth sharing and us helping to support her to share it. And that's what they followed.
Now, you're a pastor's kid, PK. For those in the know.
Yes, I am indeed.
Where do you see those PK instincts kind of pop up when you were young?
Girl, all through my life, everything, trying to be so, like, I saw a picture of me the other day on Facebook, like an old picture from when I was a teenager.
You're on Facebook still?
Girl, I'm definitely that one that's on Facebook talking to the aunties. You know, that's the way that the family communicates now.
I understand.
That's like the relative.
You've got to stay in the know.
Yes, exactly. So I was up on Facebook and I just looked at my old stuff. I was like having a blazer on at like a kid party. Like I was always trying to be so pulled together because, you know, growing up my dad's a deacon, so growing up in the church and just in that type of environment, it's always put your best foot forward, know how to behave and just, you know, be on point and everything was so serious. So I was like a very like little serious child, like always trying to be so on point, like too much.
Do you feel like that instinct has followed you a little bit in adulthood? Yeah.
Girl. Absolutely. Still very much like, I got to show up. I got to show up and make sure I do, I got to hold it down. And always just feeling like you have this lineage behind you. I think
Mhm.
that's how I grew up too. Like thinking about community, my church community, the community of my family, of my neighborhood. My
Mhm.
parents always talked about where we came from. There was such a great sense of like pride, discipline, and like integrity, and
Mhm.
just like being Black folks. You know what I'm saying? And so
Absolutely.
I always have felt that pride. And so being a performer and being on stage or being a representation in any regard, that has always been a weight that I've carried,
Mhm.
but that I've always tried to hold responsibly and intentionally, knowing that I'm not perfect, but really taking it like it's something that I don't want to be frivolous with.
Yeah, you're not trying to be flippant.
Yeah, it's a great word.
With that in mind, kind of you have this legacy that in some cases really holds you up, right? You can look back and say like these are the people that I'm standing on. These are the shoulders that I'm standing on, right? These are the people who have my back.
Yeah.
When does that pressure get to be a little much? Does it ever? Do you ever feel
Yeah.
like a burden, especially when we're
Yeah.
talking about there's a difference between a dream, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're making money in Hollywood,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Was there ever a pressure about making that next paycheck?
Absolutely. Absolutely, there's a pressure, especially when I came from poverty, not
Mhm.
the kind where it's like necessarily it's crazy. It's just like we didn't have it. You know what I mean? We just didn't have it. We didn't overthink not having it. We made do with what we had.
Mhm.
We had a great sense of love and community, but we didn't have it. And so once you see what having it is, that becomes a difficult thing to even think about going back to. Your
Mhm.
first thought is like, oh no, I have to reach a point of stability.
Mhm.
And what's so interesting is that even when you reach that point of stability, when you're working from that mindset and you're having that pressure, you don't know when it's over. And so that's
Mm.
always been something that I've worked on and that I've tried to always. I think when I became aware of it, which probably I want to say trinkles of it was when I was like 16, 17. Hey, something feels a little too much. You know what I mean? And maybe I should go to therapy. Or then 18, 19, 20. I don't know if I can hold this weight. I have to figure out a way to kind of expand and do something different that allows me to feel a little bit more free, a little less, bent into this shape. And then as I got older, I became more and more clear of what it is you just described, which is just that I kind of was in this position where I was holding up a lot,
Mhm.
and it was just kind of systemically what happened. It wasn't anything that me and my family planned,
Mhm.
but it just became this thing because I got so successful. We, found ourselves in this new world, in this new position, and it reaches a point where it's like, okay, you do have to redefine what success is for you
Mhm.
and give yourself an opportunity to like relish in that instead of always worrying about the next thing, you know?
Absolutely. Now, how did that impact your relationship with your parents? Having to be the person who all of a sudden is like, am I the breadwinner here?
Yeah. It really impacted us a lot. I mean, my parents and I talk about it all the time, even more clearly now with the language and the experience
Yeah.
being, so much behind us, or the initial impact of the experience. Fame is traumatic. The money thing, it's traumatic. Like it's traumatic in the regard of the way that everything is flipped up on its head. It's a blessing, right? It's a blessing that I'm achieving my goals. It's a blessing that my family is able to be a part of that and receiving that. And also my family is supporting and making that happen. Like
Mhm.
when we moved, my dad gave up his job. He took out his pension. My mom gave up everything. Everybody put my sister, she no longer she missed her first freshman year of high school. The twins were learning how to use the bathroom in our Dodge Caravan. You know what I mean? Like, so everybody sacrificed. And over the years, it was continuous sacrifice. My mom would be on the road with me. They would take turns. So,
Mhm.
many times we were raised like with one parent, even though we always had two in the home. So there were a lot of things that we did to make this work as family. But we always talk about, especially like I said, when I was around 16 or 17, and we started getting resources to therapy and talking through some of these things, that it wasn't a normal situation. Doesn't mean it was a
Yeah,
bad
absolutely.
situation, but it wasn't normal and nobody could prepare you for it. And for us to all be able to see each other clearly,
Mhm.
and learn how to move forward with the understanding of, what we went through, what we experienced, the great parts of it, but the parts that may have been difficult, you know.
So, with that in mind, are there ever aspects of your childhood that you wish, like, I wish I could do over a little normal?
Yeah. I mean, sure. It's hard sometimes as I get older to know what I missed, especially when everybody that I talk to is like, girl, you didn't miss nothing. I'm like, what the hell was so bad about high school for y'all to be saying that like that? I only know high school from my experiences on TV shows,
Mm-hmm.
and then the shows that I watch. So it's like either it was given Degrassi or Dawson's Creek, or it was given Moesha, or it was given One-on-One, or it was given Proud. I don't know exactly what it was like. So in my mind, based off of those TV shows,
Mm-hmm.
would I want to go back? Sure, just to get into a little Raven Baxter, seeing into the future. I would love that vibe. But also, I had a lot of great experiences on set. I mean, I remember running around to Everybody Hates Chris set, from True Jackson VP, sneaking into the Glee set, sneaking into Dr. Phil, playing around with the golf carts, you know what I mean, with Ashley and Matt. And so we had a lot of great memories too with that. So it's like, I do wish sometimes that I had the experience of socialization in a more standard environment.
Mm-hmm.
I've also learned to appreciate the childhood I had, even though it was working, long hours and all that kind of stuff, tutoring, by yourself or with one other castmate. It also had its unique moments that I do hold dear.
Now, if we're describing sets as both this playground and this kind of intense learning experience, let's talk Akeelah and the Bee. When was the last time you watched it?
Oh my gosh, that's such a good question. You know what? I don't know when it has to have been years ago. But whenever they're like, because, I'll see moments of it somewhere or we'll be playing. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. The message of the movie becomes so much deeper for me as I get older, and just the way that I look at language, how words allow you to express yourself. Even just Akeelah and her, on the surface, we're looking at a young girl spelling, but also we're seeing a young woman with extremely incredible pattern recognition.
Mm-hmm.
She has a real skill of being able to predict what comes next with these words. Like, she has an actual gift. And so, like, understanding that, the science behind that, and then the words and the way that that's all, it's a sports movie and she's killing it. And it's just like, and she has the words to say, truculent, dictatorial, supercilious garden. Like, she read him down. Like, all of those things hit me so much differently as a grown woman and as a mom.
Yeah, I mean, we are in a literacy crisis. I do think Akeelah and the Bee coming back could fix it.
Oh my gosh. Akeelah needs to come back as a professor.
Absolutely.
She's teaching now.
Who are we calling for this? Okay, so you described earlier Akeelah and the Bee being this kind of first big audition for you as like the lead, right?
Yeah.
That's your movie.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about the first time you heard about Akeelah and the Bee and what interested you in her character.
Well, my mom read the script, and I'll be honest, as a kid, I was not really knowing how to really read scripts at that point in time. So my mom was always reading the material and then seeing if it was something she felt that I should do, because she was very big on like what you perform and how it speaks to you, especially me growing up. She really was specific about the kind of material she would even want me a part of. And so when she read Akeelah and the Bee, I just remember her walking into the room, Keke got to do this movie. Keke got to do this movie. And we were like, are you okay? She's like, yes, this movie is Akeelah and the Bee. It's Akeelah and the Bee. We're like, what is it about? Is this an animation? You know what I mean? Like, what it seemed, she was so dramatic, but the name was so not. It was like Akeelah and the Bee, she's in tears. What is this? And so she's like, we got to sit down as a family and we got to read this movie together. And so we all like played roles and did pretty much a family table read of Akeelah and the Bee. And we all got really emotional at the end, because it was just, even as a kid, I understood what it was like to see this little girl go for her goals and her dreams, because I was actually doing the same thing. Through, for Akeelah, it was spelling, but for me, it was performance art. I was understanding characters and emotions and, learning my lines and having to memorize monologues. And I related to her relationship to spelling in the same way that I related to this, my own craft. And then the support that you needed to achieve it. So, that was me and my family, my mother, my father, my brother, my sisters. They would all come together, just like doing that table read, to help me to, to achieve my goals. So I related to that even at a young kid, of just the emotion behind how it takes community and how it takes people believing in you and you believing in yourself and you owning your dreams to be able to get to where you want to go. I wanted to play it because I felt that it was an inspiring character and one of a kind, something that we had not seen before, that's for sure.
I mean, she stands the test of time.
Yes!
But when I think about Akeelah and the Bee, and I'm thinking about your career, you book consistently after Akeelah and the Bee. Enough that makes me wonder, was there something about the experience that you feel like kind of transformed you as an actor? Like gave you
I think so, without a doubt.
courage
That's a
or
great question. That's
thank
like
you?
such a good question. It's so true because I believe this is why my mom was so critical
Mm-hmm.
about the kinds of roles that she would allow me to play, especially as a kid. Because there's something that is affirmative about these things at a certain point,
Mm-hmm.
especially at a young age when you're not able to really differentiate your boundary line from you and your character. That's something that's critical in general as an actor, is
Mm-hmm.
being able to leave it at work, or if you're more method, leave it once the movie's done. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? And that balance, it can wrap you up and you can find yourself in habits and doing things that ain't even you. It's just the role that you played. And so as a kid, she was very critical because I was still discovering who I was. So she wanted to be careful with what she was exposing me to and what words I was saying and how I was affirming my life. So when we think about the speech where, she's with Dr. Larrabee and he says, who are we not to be? You were born to make manifest, all of that stuff. Having those things in my mind at a very young age,
Mm-hmm.
believing that I can win, that I can go for my goal and I can make it to that next step, believing that I have people that want to see me win, that I
Mm-hmm.
have support, that I have a community that's behind me. All of that thinking and being a part of that. And then what came after that, like what being in that movie opened up my world too. I think 100% was a part of the trajectory of my life, for sure.
After we have all of these great roles, and then I feel like you get to be one of the few people who you were like, I was a Nick star and a Disney star. Talk to me about being a part of those two huge kind of brands and what
Yeah.
you think that did for your career.
Well, being able to work with Disney and Nick was huge for my career because I was able to work, like independently, you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And be able to have access to both of, their productions, their audiences, just all around. It's also the way that I think that I still work in this industry is I'm
Hmm.
always trying to work from a point of being an entrepreneur and a creator and collaborating with the brand or collaborating with the company or collaborating with the studio because it allows me to, it's not just I don't want to make it sound like it's just about I'm free, but it's also about like, how do I put it into words? It's kind of one of these things where it's like I just believe in this world where we are not constantly put in an employee mindset, but we're able
Hmm.
to actually work side by side and make sure that the things that we are working with are also going along with the goals that we have set for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I think at a young age, my mom made me look at it that way. Even if I was looking at a big brand like a Disney or a Nickelodeon, she said, is this company serving you too? And if they can only service you in this one category, then work with them in this category and then work with them in this other category. And that's still how I believe and how I work. I think it's fair because it's like, yeah, I want to work and collaborate with anybody, but it's a give and a take. And I think a lot of times we're put in a position, especially as talent, or especially if we're working with a major company or something, that we don't have a voice in that regard. And I
Mm-hmm.
think you got to be clear about what you have leverage on and how you can do things, but you should always be able to say, well, I don't know if it's all the way this, but I can get down with this. And that's what my relationship was with Nickelodeon and Disney Channel. For years, I never was with a TV show with any of them. It can be different when you start getting into a TV show, right? Once I did my TV show, True Jackson VP, it was like I was with Nickelodeon. I had kind
Mm-hmm.
of made my choice of who I was getting married to. But before then, it's like if you want to do a movie, then we just doing a movie. If you want to do a soundtrack, we just doing a soundtrack. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Until something steps up to what I feel is comparable. And so yeah, I look back on those journeys and I think about all the great skill sets that I learned from both of those companies. Working with Disney taught me how to be very much a vaudevillain. I grew up with my mom talking about Judy Garland and, Shirley Temple, Mickey Rooney, all the OGs
Mm-hmm.
that were, singers, dancers, actors, hosts, everything. And so I really feel lucky to have worked at Disney at the time that I did growing up because it was very much like MGM. They were very much churning out little stars.
The
Like,
content wheel.
yeah, the content will. And so the things that people see me do today, so much of that I really was watching and learning and
Mm-hmm.
kind of the early days doing with Disney, and then even more so with Nickelodeon.
I think behind your words is what at least what I'm hearing is I had to be in the room and I had to be like, True Jackson's not doing that. What are some choices that you feel like show up in the final product, whether we're talking about True or even maybe
Yeah.
Jump In? What are some instances where you're like, I made a choice and I was like, I'm not doing that. Or I think this is a better option instead.
I wish that I could remember specific ones because I know that I did that. I know that I did that because I've always been the kind of person to not necessarily try to challenge, but I really have to understand anything that I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's always some point where I'm like, well, what do you mean by that? You know, and how does that pertain to actually what we're going to be doing? Like, and so what, you know, so I would imagine that I was doing that at an early age on those shows. I can't say exactly what scene or what moment or what thing, but I will say, like, I was always thinking about making sure that there was integrity with what I did. And I think
Mm-hmm.
I would often have to be maybe even thinking about that a little bit more as a person of color, because I'm always like, how's this being seen? And I think that's the pressure that you have as a person of color. It's just like, how's this being seen? Is this going to be da-da-da? Is this sort of that? So I always did have a little bit of that stress,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because I was like, nobody else is going to be thinking about it in that regard, because they don't, why would they? You know what I mean? Many times I was the only Black person, even on my own show. And so I was often just thinking about, like, how do I make sure that I am aware of,
Mm-hmm.
of this in a way that other people around me simply could not, other than my family, of course, you know.
They were in the room. They were like,
Right.
they're watching.
My mom was like, no, that's good. That's good. Well, ask if you need a question.
There's something so interesting about talking to an actress with your caliber, because there were so many, many projects to kind of poke at and talk about. I, as you know, Rags Supremacy all the way down. You know,
Yes,
Rags is my movie.
Okay, put your heart to it.
We know Rags is my movie. Same for Joyful Noise. And
Oh my gosh,
wondering,
the taste is tasty.
tell me, what's a project that you feel like didn't get its flowers at the time?
Oh my gosh. Well, I think the two you named are really good reference points. Like Rags. I mean, I guess people did love Rags at the time, but I feel like it still is like one of those things that the girls who get it, get it. You know what I mean? And I think Joyful Noise, similar as well, where it's like the girls that get it, get it. The other one that is surprising to people is Akeelah the Bee. When Akeelah the Bee first came out, not a box office hit at all. And then it becomes this classic film, you know, and especially with DVDs, and then people were always licensing it, putting on their network. Disney would play it like every single year, multiple times a year. That one, I love bringing up its story, because a lot of people think it was just so immediate, and it wasn't. It was like one of those things that had impact as it lived on.
Tell me a little bit about what you get out of stretching the muscles as a host as well.
Oh, I love hosting. I love to talk to people. I love structure, I think, too. Like, I like the idea of, like, this is what I got to say. This is what I'm doing. You know, in many ways, you're holding the show together. And I think there's something that is really just like, you know, that I live for the gag of it all. Like, let's get it, you know, let's move this, I love the fun of that. I can get really creative, you know, being a host. Like, you know, with Password, I get really creative in the character of a host because of the nature of the show and the fact that it's been around for so many generations, and really doing a nod to those early days of the show when it first came out, but then also bringing a little bit of current, you know, contemporary vibes to it, with my comedy, my humor, my style. And then a lot of times when I'm just doing my own stuff, you know, like with maybe this Keke Palmer, or when I hosted the Met Gala, it's just being in these spaces, they can be so heightened. And I feel like I'm always wanting to just bring it down there. You know what I mean? And not for any other reason other than it's hard up there, you know, to be so, So whenever I get an opportunity to curate a space or a vibe that's like, we good. You know, and you good over here, and we ain't got to do too much, and ain't nothing too crazy, and let's just... Anytime that I can do that, especially in my industry where it can be like, I think it's fun for me, you know, and it allows me to be in the vibe that I prefer, which is just like, hey, let's have fun, let's be cool, let's be chill.
And I don't think it's a coincidence that in a lot of those hosting gigs, or at least what you're describing is these kind of off the cuff, chill moments, are the ones people love the most. I mean, do you have a favorite viral moment?
I do love the one that they were like, because I like everything that they put to it. This one has a little sweetness to it. Like, I love, and honestly, you know, you don't think that would be the thing. And it's so funny because it's like they put so many different storylines to it. Before you know it, it's this whole copy pasta. It's a lot.
Now, we've established you're busy. What makes music important to you as something to kind of continually keep up?
Well, you know, I think it's one of the things that I love. It's one of the things that I love to do. So, and it's interesting, just like with movies or TV shows, it all is about what the vibe is at the moment. So I'll go through something where it's like, oh, I just wanted, especially this over the last couple of years, I really wanted to focus on comedy work. And I'd done some really dramatic stuff. Like I did a movie Pimp, and I did a movie called Alice, and they required a lot of emotional weight from me. And so I kind of got to a place where I was like, I only feel like really doing, more of my sketch stuff, more of my comedy stuff, more of my hosting stuff, where I can kind of breathe and get out of a little bit of that heavy weight. And I think it's the same thing with music. When I've gone so deep on doing a character or doing a role, then I want to do maybe more hosting, more singing, something that allows me to showcase what's going on in my internal world, allows me to speak to kind of just who I am as a person. I think that's what music really allows. It's you as opposed to a role you're playing. And obviously, as an artist, there is some element, right, of performance nature, that you put into it. But your fans, it's like a wink and a nod. Because your fans know it's like, oh, she's getting into her era, she's doing her vibe. But they know when they listen to the music that this is you speaking to them and this is what matters to you. And so I think that's why I like it, because it makes sure that I'm always having that tether, both personally, obviously, but also professionally. Like it's in my work too.
Now, with that in mind, kind of like nodding or speaking to your fans, who are some musical inspirations that you feel like who have careers that you want to emulate? Are there people that you're taking inspiration from?
Careers that I want to emulate, that is really a tough one. The reason why it's hard to say is because it's a few different types of people, and I mean this strictly by what they've accomplished. I don't know everybody personally. You never know when people say, oh, she want to be like, that's not what I said. I said I like their career. You know what I mean? I don't know what they did in 1955. Please leave me out of it. But if I'm just thinking about like the people that I think of, is I think about like brand, and then I think about people that have platformed things or concepts, or you know what I mean, a given opportunity or created something. So I think about people like Steve Jobs, like he just, in terms of him being a visionary, creating something that has allowed access for other people, just taking a small idea and making it big. I think about what I want to do with Key TV and what I've done with myself as Keke Palmer, and use that as a platform for other people to help them build their brands, to tell their stories, to understand what it means to distill who they are as an artist and how to share that with the world without being extracted from when it comes to working with institutions or big companies. And so I think about stuff like being a builder. And then I also think about like people that have built incredible brands like omnichannel, like Oprah Winfrey, Martha Stewart, those people impress me because they have something for you and they're meeting their audience wherever their audience is. And it feels like it's just their life too, right? Like I think that's also what excites me as a creator, as an entrepreneur, as an artist, is being able to touch many different access points. And that in touching those different access points, I'm also able to bring other people with me.
That makes sense to me, because I feel like everything that you were vocal about is you want to be in the room where it happens.
Okay.
Right? You want to be in the room where it happens.
I'm at the table.
You're sitting down. You have a say. Does that pressure ever become exhausting? I mean, you're describing, you just listed moguls, right? You're not like, I want to be Mariah. You're like, I'd like to have the turtleneck. I want to be Steve Jobs.
I'm Steve. Hello, it's Mr. Jobs.
Is
I
that
don't know how
not
he talk.
tiring?
Guys, yeah, I actually do have a problem, Cece. I actually do. I actually do. It literally gets to the point where I'm writing in my journal, Lauren has 24 hours in a day. If 4% of her day is 1 hour, how many more hours? Like, it gets to the point where I'm doing calculations on how I can spread my energy out and make sure I make it through what I'm trying to do. So it is important that, I have breaks. And I think the way that I'm able to remind myself or I don't want to say force myself, but you know how sometimes you can be it's like the memes you see online where you're like in the bed, but your mind doesn't turn off.
Absolutely.
That's me. And I'm sure it's probably you. I imagine as a creator, you too. And I have to tell myself every time, like, guess what's going to make me better if I get this rest tonight? Guess what's going to make me better if I take that 2-week vacation? Guess what's going to make me better if I just call off for the day? And that's really what helps me, because, when you're an ambitious person, which I don't think is a bad thing, a lot of times because we live in such a hustle culture and a work culture and everybody feels so forced to do the same thing, we have a weird reaction to that. I don't think everybody needs to be very ambitious. If it's not for you, it's not for you. But to the people that are very ambitious, you can feel kind of, because like, am I wrong for wanting to get it done? Am I wrong for having big dreams? Am I wrong for you're not wrong, but we got to be real with ourselves, and we got to have balance, because if you really are ambitious, if you really want to get to your goals, if you really love what you do, take a break. You have to, only because it's going to make you better. And that's something that I've learned both in experience and the hard way. You know what I mean? And so that's a big part of my life now. It's literally like just as important as the work. And it's changed. I was talking to my publicist the other day about it, and I said, I started to get scared of myself, girl, because I'm starting to say no to everybody. I ain't never used to say no like this. But ever since I started to honor this, my life has changed.
What was that hard way?
Being disembodied, not being present in the moment, just being on autopilot. You know what I mean? Actually, like being so impressively hyper functioning that it's like I ain't even had to be in the room, but I was in the room. You know, that can be impressive, but it's not fun because you're not there. Mm-hmm. You're not enjoying it. You know what I mean? I'm not actually creating with the room. You know, I'm kind of just and on my way. You know what I mean? And that's the hard way, is that you realize that, oh shit, did I do that yesterday? Oh, wait a minute. What do you mean that was completed? We don't even be knowing half the time that's the sign. Mm-hmm. You know, the sign is lack of recall. The sign is, I thought I put that in my drawer. It was in your pocket. It's small stuff like that. Your mm-hmm. memory. You know what I mean? And so when you start looking at that, then it starts to say, well, wait a minute. If I really care about what I'm doing, if I really care about what I've got going on, then I gotta honor myself, and I gotta make sure I'm honoring rest as a part of the program.
And when you rest, you turn out these phenomenal performances that it's very clear that you have your heart in them. Talk to me a little bit about Nope. Working with Jordan Peele, what was that like?
It was really great. It was really great. It was life-changing as well, that experience working with him. He was so embracing to me. He really saw me. And when I think about the role, the nuances of that character, how many conversations that we had where he wasn't leading me, but he was looking at the full picture, and he was encouraging me to follow what I knew. It was, I think, the first time that I really understood how much autonomy I had as an actor. And that as an actor, it's a really big part of my job, just as much as it is of the directors, to tell him who the character is. And I think the way that he worked with me really, really changed the way that I moved as an actor, because he let me know that that was important. And then I seen how it changed and enhanced the project, you know, when I really knew that I had a voice that was worth being heard. And so when I look at that scenario, and then I think about the work that I've also done after that film, it's very much a checkpoint, you know.
Yeah. Now, if Nope is a yes that worked out, what's a project that you said no to that you were like, I feel like I maybe should have said yes to that?
You know, I don't know that I regret. I can't do everything, you know, so it's like one of those things. But I remember when I watched The Blackening, I was like, damn, I would have loved to be in there, you know, because it didn't work out, me doing it. But when I watched it, I was like, now this shit is funny. I could have had some fun up in there, gagged with the kids real quick, you know. But I mean, there's so many things that either I didn't get or I couldn't do, that didn't work out, you know, that you just, you know, it's like, what could you do?
Yeah.
You know?
How are you thinking about legacy as an actor?
Only as an actor?
And you know what? That's the problem right there.
But that was a good question, though. Because I was like, only as an actor, I would say, I was going to have something for you.
Tell me how you're thinking about legacy as an actor, and then tell me about how you're thinking about legacy overall.
Okay, so legacy as an actor. You know, it's interesting because I feel that now that my legacy is so interesting. I never thought of this as a kid because I was always doing so many dramatic roles and getting applause for like dramatic roles, you know what I mean? But then obviously I started doing comedy with Nickelodeon and True Jackson VP or in Disney, whatever. And so even more so now in this this most recent phase of my career, everybody's like, she's a comedian. You know, she's a comedian. You know what I mean? Hollywood is so funny because when I was a kid, it was always the next Angela Bassett. She's the next Angela.
They wanted to see you cry.
They wanted to see me, girl. They wanted me, duh. You know what I mean? Now it's like, she's a comedian. She's the next, you know, and so when I think about the legacy as an actor, I don't know, man. I just would hope that they see me as a character actor, somebody that can play any role,
Mm-hmm.
that can give you drama, that can give you comedy, that can give you unique, perspectives, and just did interesting work that also like sparked conversation. I think I always want to do stuff or I do things that are at least interesting to me that I have something to say about.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I'm thinking about legacy overall, like, I mean, if I was gonna be thinking, and again, I'm not saying I'm like this person, but when you think about the legacy of people like, I don't even want to say this person.
You gotta say it. Now you've got to say it.
Because it is like, girl, you ain't no damn.
You're thinking about the audience. We're right here. Tell me about it.
You know how people feel about Quincy Jones. I'm not a composer, but you know what I mean? You know how people feel like we feel like he's our family member.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? You feel like he was a part of a lot of storylines,
Mm-hmm.
and he was a supporting person in somebody else's stardom too.
Yes.
I think I love that. That's why I said Quincy Jones, because I love the fact that like Quincy Jones, he was his own thing, but also Quincy Jones he was the one that Michael was working with to make Thriller. You know what I'm saying?
A cultural fixture.
Yes. Girl, you better pull those words out of that school. She said a cultural fixture. Girl, that cultural fixture took me out.
Stop. I'll cry. That's
Girl,
so
gave
funny.
me life. Yes, you nailed it. But that's the yes. I think that's so a cultural fixture. That's so important. Like, it's like I want to be able to like we making a table together.
Mm-hmm.
And you sitting there and you sitting there and we're sitting there and we're making something. You know what I mean? That's so yeah.
I love boosters. Talk to me about Corvette and the Velvet Gang.
Yes! Love these girls. Love Boots Riley. Love the way that he can take something that is, similar to, we think about the anti-heroes of Set It Off. These women that were ultimately really fighting against the system that deserved to fight, but fighting in the only way they knew how that ultimately cost them their lives. And we look at a movie like I Love Boosters that takes a similar tale of women taking matters into their own hands, but it's told through this way that allows you to feel more liberated than you do feel like, what's the point? But it also is realistic in the same way, saying that, hey, I also don't know that all the problems can be solved. But here's a way that we could talk about it. It's so great that we're talking about so much now, but also we don't know where to put it. So it's kind of like we end up carrying this weight all day, all of us. You know what I mean? Especially the millennials, Gen Z, we're all becoming the new adults, which is a crime. And it's like, we're like, what did y'all leave us with? What did y'all leave us with? And and it's like, but we got to figure out like, it's like, okay, we know what we're left with. How do we move forward though? Once we stop crying, once we wipe our, when Ben fell on the ground, we get up, we dust our shoulders off. How do we move forward? And so I think we got to start having more of those conversations, which some of us obviously are having, but like, how can we do it in a way that that people can feel encouraged and not like they're always putting their lives on the line? I feel like this movie, for me, we're seeing these women have that experience, and we're seeing the danger, the reward, and then we're also asking ourselves, what really is value? And where does community truly live for you in that?
We can't obviously talk about legacy in any capacity without talking about your legacy. Tell me about motherhood. How has it been?
Oh my gosh, girl!
You know I'll talk about him all day.
Yeah!
You know I'll talk about him all day.
Literally.
You know that's the cutest baby I've ever seen.
Girl, he's the bomb. I just can't with him. Literally, my son has changed my life. He's everything to me in my world. And honestly, he's really like a very cool kid. Like, he actually is very like, Mom, you bother me. You bother me. And he's like, I want to go to school by myself. Like, he's so, this little Leo B.O., he's the coolest, funnest kid ever. And he's so smart and just, I don't know, man. I think it's like, motherhood I thought was going to be dope, but it's like really way better than I could ever describe. It really is. And it's not for everybody, but I think it really was always for me. Yeah. You know what I mean? It really was. And I feel that every day that I get the opportunity to see my son, wake up with my son, hang out with my son, that God really loves me. That's what I feel. I feel that God really loves me, man. Thank you, God, because I get to see this person be a part of their lives and support them as they become who they're meant to be. It's just the coolest thing.
That's so beautiful. What are the parts that are kicking your ass?
Girl. Well, first of all, my son's mean as hell. He's not nice. I left that part out. He's actually, and he's the kind of, my son told me the other day, I came back from the Pilates, I'm going to Stott Academy, getting my certification as a Pilates instructor.
Didn't we just talk about you doing too much?
I know. Here we go again. So my son, I come in the house and my son said, "Mommy, you stink." I said, "Excuse me." He said, "You stink." I'm like, "Well, I just came from the Pilates. That's why I'm trying to get in the shower." So he follows me into the bathroom while I'm taking my shower. He keeps peeking in, and then says, "You're throwing water on me." And I said, "Well, son, I told you that you need to get your little ass up out of here. But you decided to come up in. You told me I was stinking. Then I came in to get a shower. Then you trying to tell me that I'm getting water on you because you don't know how to close the door and let me have my privacy." And I get out the shower. "Mommy, I didn't really like it how you was throwing water on me because you were stinking. And then that was crazy. And I don't know why you was stinking. And that was really bad, Mommy. You shouldn't have been stinking." The hell is wrong with you? He's off the chain. Off the chain. And it's so funny because you don't want to hit him. You don't want to pop that. We trying to be better than the generation before.
Absolutely.
So it's like, how the hell do I do this gentle parent thing? Because you about to get, you know what I mean? It's like you try to so hard to.
About to get got.
You're going to get popped. You know what I mean? It's like so hard to keep it all together, especially because my son, I don't know what he was doing. We were in the airport. I was trying to get on his head. I was like, "You need to bow." And he turned around. I was doing it he was in the back. So I'm like standing in his back and I'm like, "You need to bow." And he said, "What is you, a lizard?" I said, who am I raising? I don't know, girl. I don't know.
Who's your village right now?
Oh my gosh. Well, I have my mom. So me and my sisters live together. My older sister, L'Oreal, she has 3 kids. They come back and forth between our house and their dad's house. And then my baby sister, we live together as well. And then my mom is always there, and then I also have supportive nannies. So, for me, it's like the village is large. You know what I mean? I don't know what I would be able to do without all the help that I have, you know what I mean, to keep doing what I'm doing for my career, for my family, for my community, but then also being there with them and enjoying our time together as a family.
Now, we can't talk about motherhood without talking about Vegas. I'm sorry, Keke, we've got to get into it.
OMG.
The quote from your ex, Darius Jackson, "You were serenaded by Usher," which I think is probably heaven, right? It's gotta be a lifetime achievement. He goes off on Twitter and he says, quote, "It's the outfit though, you a mom."
Your facial expression as you're saying this is killing me.
You know I'm mad. Anyway, when did you first see it? What was your initial reaction?
I was in LA doing the cut cover, and everybody was looking just crazy on my team. They were just like, I'm like, what the hell is wrong with them? Why are they looking so weird? And then, you check socials and you check pop culture as you always do. And then I see that it's me today. It's always crazy when it's you that day. It could be good. It could be bad. It could be, I think I was in shock. That's the main thing. I really was like in shock because one thing that I don't like to do is I don't want to say I only see the internet as this way, but I kind of see my career and being a public facing person, like it's always like I'm at the office, so I'm like, I think there's a certain level to it that feels like I'm at the office when I post something online or when I'm out in public as a public figure. So for me, I was just kind of like, this doesn't belong at work. You know what I mean?
It felt like something private that got made public.
Yeah. So I was kind of like, I felt like that clip of that meme of that lady. That black lady that's on the divorce court or whatever. She's like I felt stuck because I was like, I can't say anything about this.
One of the frustrating things about being a public figure is then that the breakup and the subsequent legal filings were also in some way public. How does that complicate what is already a difficult time? I mean, you in a filing accuse him of abuse, and then obviously because of the legality of everything, you can't really talk about this online. But how does being a public figure and kind of being in the public eye during these times complicate the emotions around it?
It just makes it public, and it shouldn't be. And there's not much you can do about it. So a lot of times people feel like that you're saying it to them, when you're saying it to the court. And so then it becomes something where they expect you to speak on it, but it really wasn't for them to see to begin with. But it kind of comes with the territory, of being an entertainer. So it's just like one of those things where it's like, this really wasn't, no shade, but this really wasn't for you. I hate that you found out. And I'm going to handle my life and do what I need to do to move forward in good faith. You know what I mean? But it's just one of those things where it's kind of like a dream that you showed up and you got no pants on. What could you do other than pull your pants up and move on?
And you've said in later articles and later interviews that you two are in a better place now. And how do you get there once like you're describing, your dirty laundry becomes public, whether you like it or
Yeah.
not.
I mean, there's no easy way to say it, but I can't say that it didn't have anything to do with God, because it did. I feel like God does incredible things, and whether people believe in God or not, or how they see God in their lives. Some people see it as time, some people see it as a universe, some people see it as all of the above. For me, I see it as the thing that allows for the impossible to happen, things that you didn't imagine to happen. If you just keep living, and keep being true to yourself, I feel like for me, that's all that I've been trying to do in my life, and especially after having my son, is just be true. Do what's going to be right for me, do what's going to be right for my son, and trust in God that everything's going to work out. You know what I mean? I never wanted any bad, negative drama. I never want anything to be left on a bad note. I'm always trying to leave things with a positive vibe. And so sometimes that means distance, you know what I mean? And God will heal the rest. Time will do the rest. But all I can do is really focus on my son. And I think that's where I kept it. Focusing on my son, focusing on making sure I was in the best position I could be in, so that I could be focused and be good for my son. And then I let God do the rest. And, God did his thing.
How are you approaching dating now?
Ain't nobody interesting. I'm open. You know what I mean?
Really?
I'm open. I don't know what I give off. I feel that I get very closed. I don't know, because ain't nobody coming.
You're saying they're scared.
They're scared. They're scared. I mean, this suit is quite fearful.
Are you looking for a relationship out of the public eye? Are you looking for a partner that's not in showbiz? Or do you want one who's in showbiz so they can understand?
I've never been into the public eye. I've never been into it. I tried every now and then. You'll get into a relationship. As a public figure, you'll often get into a relationship with somebody that wants to be a part of your public life. Otherwise, they feel like they're being hidden. So that's like a hard thing to deal with, but it's never anything I've wanted to do, even if I've had moments of trying to appease. So I don't feel like that's me, to necessarily be like, this is my man. I'm a Virgo. Anybody that's a Virgo know that we are very like, this is my man. Go.
Get out of here.
I don't know why we're like so pinched and spooked about everything like that. Vulnerability. I'm not very into that. I have been more open to people in the industry in my mind, because I do feel that it's cool that you get it. I think when I was younger, especially, I used to always be like, I don't want anybody in this business. Because you see a lot in this business. And it's a lot of crazies up over here. But, I realize there's crazies everywhere. And so I'm more open, I think, to entertainers or people that are in my industry than I was in the past. But I'm giving more Miss Congeniality than Michelle Pfeiffer. You know what I mean?
She ends up with a guy at the end of Miss Congeniality.
Yeah, but you see how it happened, though. It was very like,
it's a little quirk. Oh, so it's a little quirked up.
Yeah, it's a little too much.
You need a meet cute.
What's a meet cute?
A meet cute is like in a rom-com when, like the girl like stumbles or she trips and then, or you have like a funny way of like introducing each other and then you have a fun story. You need a meet cute.
That's me. Everything is so gaggy and everything is so kitschy and everything is so witty and it's all so much. I don't know why I think I'm always in a gag. I'm always in like some type of bit. It's too much.
The DMs are open, is basically. Now, last question for you. What does it mean to be Keke Palmer to you?
I mean, Keke Palmer is an observer of culture. She is somebody that really is inspired by her generation, inspired by our creativity, all of our creativity. And I just want to reflect it back the best way possible, whether that's through conversations on my podcast, through the characters that I play, through the music that I perform. That's how I feel about creating my work, is reflecting all the beauty from every corner of our culture around us in all different avenues. That's really what drives me. That's what inspires me. I go online, I go into places where where my sister's school is. We've shown up to FAMU. I'm watching how the kids are dressing. What are y'all listening to? And what's happening and what's the conversations, and it forms into something that I can make a story or an art piece. You know what I mean? I think about people like Basquiat, or I think about Andy Warhol, and I think about how they were doing the thing, but not the thing, yet observing the thing and also authoring the thing. And I find that in pop culture, in pop art, I find that to be what I really also relate to.
You want to do it all.
I want to do it all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So much. It's so good to see you.
Good to see you too.